Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning and welcome to another week here at school. A very exciting week actually, our aspirations week. The week where we ask you to think about your future self. And we ask you to think about what steps you need to take if you want to create the future self that you want for yourself. And don't forget, on Friday, we're going to ask you to come to school dressed as your future self. So I'm hoping to see lots of plumbers, lots of electricians, lots of doctors, lots of lawyers, lots of teachers, lots of nurses. Whatever you perceive yourself to be, whatever your hopes and desires are for the future, on Friday we want you to come dressed as that particular person. But throughout the week we're going to be thinking about what it is that you will need to do if you want to make that ambition come true. Because remember, tomorrow starts today. We've thought about that a lot in school. But we're back to virtual assemblies again. Like I said, we're not sure for how long, but we're going to stay in our classrooms doing our assemblies just for the next few weeks, just to keep ourselves nice and safe. But what we always do in assembly, when you're coming into assembly, and we're going to continue to do it even though it's virtual, we listen to music from our composer in the spotlight. Now, who can remember, who can recall what our composer in the spotlight was, who our composer in the spotlight was last half term? Sit on your hands. Teachers, please ask the class, who was our composer last half term? Okay, Johann Sebastian Bach. And can you still recall facts about Johann Sebastian Bach? Can you recall, when was he born? When did he die? What's the period of music called when Bach was composing? Where was he born? So let's hope you can recall all those facts. But our composer in the spotlight this half term is Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So we started to think about him last week and we're thinking about him again this week. Here we are, here are some facts. Born in Salzburg, Austria, 1756. Died at quite a young age, didn't he? Because he died in 1791. His music is from the classical period. He was taught by his father and he could play the harpsichord by the age of 3, the violin at 4, and was composing his own music a year later. So children in reception class, we need to start thinking about you composing your own music. And what was the music we listened to last week? Sit on your hands, teachers. Can any of your class recall the music we listened to last week? The Marriage of Figaro. Well done. And this week we're going to listen to a piece of music called the Clarinet Concerto. So the next 2 minutes we're just going to quietly reflect and quietly listen to Mozart's composition called Clarinet Concerto. And whilst we're doing that, I want you to think about what is our theme for our assemblies this term, because when I come back onto the screen, I'm going to be asking you, what is our theme, and what stories have we used so far to demonstrate that theme. So here we go, Mozart's Clarinet Concerto. What is our theme and what stories have we already used to exemplify that theme? Please tell them to your teacher, and teachers, please can you be creating a list of those stories. Mozart Clarinet Concerto. Okay, so that was just a 2-minute sample from Mozart's composition, the Clarinet Concerto. And as you're coming into your classrooms this week, that music will be playing, so you'll be able to hear a little bit more of that as the week goes on. And also, we've got the Marriage of Figaro from last week that you heard as well. So we're building up our repertoire of knowledge on Mozart's compositions. But I said I was going to ask you, what is our theme at the moment? And of course, here it is. The keys to success are hard work and determination. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So I hope what you've written down in your classrooms are some of the stories that we've been using to exemplify this theme. So as I say them, maybe you can tick them off on your board and say, oh yes, miss, we remember that one. So did you remember the story of the baby bear and the mummy bear? The baby bear trying to climb up that mountain and kept falling back down. And mummy bear just stood at the top, pacing, waiting for baby bear to climb up that mountain. And eventually baby bear got to the top without any help whatsoever, all by him herself. So, did you remember that one? Did you remember the story of Noah? Noah was asked to build an ark by God. God sent Noah an instruction to save the world, and Noah went away to build an ark. And the theory is, the theorists and the theological people believe that it probably took Noah 70 years to build that ark, but he didn't give up. He went to every corner of the earth to gather those sets of animals. He found all the wood, he found all the materials, he found his builders, and it took him a long time, but he didn't give up. And 70 years later, his ark was ready for when the floods came. Any other stories? Do you remember the story of the man who built his house on the rock and the man who built his house on the sand? Both of them worked really hard to build those houses, but one man didn't work hard before he chose his plot. So the man who worked hard to find a really good place to build his house, and thought, I'm going to build my house over here because that's really solid foundations, his house became successful. But the man who just thought, oh, build it anyway, I'm not bothered, build my house here on the sand, the first place I come across, I'll build it here. He worked hard to build his house, but it was quite fruitless, because actually, as soon as the rain came, his house collapsed. So we learnt about putting the effort in before and finding the right foundation. Did you remember the story of Robert the Bruce? The man who gave up, but then he went and sat in a shed and he saw a spider swinging backwards and forth, building his web. And Robert the Bruce thought, that the spider doesn't give up, I'm not going to give up neither, and I'm going to work really hard. And he went out and he went on to defeat the English army. Lots of stories, and I hope you tick them all off. And then last week we looked at the proverb from the Bible, didn't we, from the book of Proverbs. I'm going to read you that one again because that was our most recent, so that probably is the one we've not recalled as often. So let's see if you can just remember as I remind you what we talked about last week. So let's just read this proverb from the book of Proverbs in the Bible. Let's just read this again. I walk through the fields and vineyards of a lazy person. They were full of thorn bushes and overgrown with weeds. The stone wall around them had fallen down. I looked at this, thought about it, and learned a lesson from it. Go ahead, take your nap. Go ahead and sleep. Fold your hands and rest a while. But while you are asleep, poverty will attack you like a robber. From the book of Proverbs in the Bible. And again, we thought about what that meant. You reap what you sow. You create, in the end, the product of the hard work that you put in beforehand. What comes out is determined by what you put in. And we thought about that. The keys to success are hard work and determination. This week's story, I'm going to talk to you a story about a photographer who wanted to capture the story, the full life cycle of the butterfly, from the caterpillar through the chrysalis, and then then the butterfly, the whole life cycle of the butterfly. And the photographer wanted to capture that whole process. So every day the photographer would look and find a caterpillar and actually take photographs of that cycle. But something towards the end of that cycle happens. And I want you to think about what that means for us. So I'm going to tell you the story of the caterpillar, and then we're going to come back together and we're going to think about what does that teach us, what's the lesson from the story of the caterpillar. There was once a wildlife photographer. The photographer's job was to capture the change that a caterpillar would undergo in becoming a butterfly. The photographer found a caterpillar happily munching on some leaves, and as the photographer watched, the caterpillar stopped eating and took itself off, away from the food, and attached itself to the underside of a small branch. As it hung there, the caterpillar began shedding its skin, and emerging from underneath, the photographer could see a chrysalis. The photographer watched the chrysalis every day, but it remained unchanged for about 2 whole weeks. But finally, she saw movement. The chrysalis began to break apart. A small slit appeared, and she was able to get some amazing photographs as the butterfly started to break free from its chrysalis. But the butterfly very soon became exhausted as it struggled and pushed to break free and escape from this chrysalis, from its self-made prison. The photographer couldn't watch the poor butterfly struggle any longer, and with a tiny pocket knife, the photographer cut open the chrysalis and the butterfly emerged. The photographer quickly prepared the camera and waited to photograph the butterfly opening up its wings. But the butterfly just stood with its wings folded, unable to fly. The photographer soon realised what had happened. The butterfly was supposed to struggle. By forcing open the chrysalis, the butterfly was in fact strengthening its wings for its very first flight. In helping the butterfly to break free, the photographer had ruined any chance the butterfly had of flying. Okay, so the story of the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. What does that teach us? What's the moral of that story? What is the learning from that story? So what we understand is that towards the end of that cycle, the emerging butterfly was struggling. He was struggling to emerge from the chrysalis. But actually, going through that struggle, the process of the struggle, the process of unfurling his wings, the process of breaking free from the chrysalis, that actual process is important, because by going through that process, that's the point at which the butterfly is strengthening his wings, so that when he fully emerges, his wings are ready and are strong enough to go off and fly. So it's the process of the struggle that gives the butterfly the strength. And when the photographer helped the butterfly along the way, what that photographer was actually doing was removing the struggle, but then actually was denying the butterfly the opportunity to eventually go on to fly. Because it was only by going through that struggle that the butterfly got enough strength to be able to fly after all. It's like Baby Bear and Mummy Bear. I kept saying, Baby Bear had to do that climb by herself. Mummy Bear, had Mummy Bear gone and helped, the baby bear would never have developed the strength to get to the top of the mountain and to feel that sense of achievement of doing it by themselves. And there's learning for us there. You know, when maths is hard, when spellings are hard, when getting up in the morning is hard, when getting dressed is hard, when things are hard. If somebody else steps in and takes over and does that work for us, then actually we're not going to be a better person because of it. We're not going to benefit from the struggle. We're not going to appreciate what we went through and come out of the other side. Learning is hard, but we've got to embrace that struggle and get through it. And with God's help, like it says on the screen here, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. If it's hard, keep going. Ask for help in God. Ask for help from others, but go through the process of the struggle. Hands together, eyes closed. Dear God, we are thankful for examples of hard work. We are also thankful for the benefits that we gain from reaching our targets. Give us the stamina to see our efforts build up and up until we see the fruit of our labour. We're thankful for stories that make us think about important lessons that can help us in our own lives. Help us to remember that the struggles we face often help us to master new skills or develop better friendships. Help us to develop the perseverance to see our struggles through to completion. Amen. Well done. I'm just going to give you some quiet reflection time now, just a minute's worth of reflection time, and you'll see some questions come up on the screen. Don't forget to add your reflections to your reflection book in class or add them to the Shine Team blog, whichever, but add your reflections somewhere so they become embedded. And the questions we're going to be asking: how did the story of the butterfly make you feel? Can learning new skills sometimes feel like a struggle? What school skill do you need to practice? And what friendship skill might you need to practice? And after you've had some reflection time, we're going to sing our school song, our Learn, Sparkle and Shine song, and I want you to raise the roof. You're in your classrooms, so it's absolutely fine to raise the roof. Your windows will be open. Let's see if we can hear the song all the way down Alexandra Street. Learn, Sparkle and Shine. Have a fantastic week. Don't forget on Friday, come dressed as your future self. Who is ready to learn, sparkle and shine? Have a great week.